Holy hell! What a day! What a journey trying to get this cluster bleep put together. But we are here. We're there. I've got a handheld microphone, Alice. This is new for me.
You sound
new
good.
For me, this is like when Bruce works without the guitar, except I'm not Bruce, and without the talent, without the fans. Okay, so now we have a guest with us, and he is.
Somebody in the chat wants to know if you worked at FTX, and that's the surprise.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I did work. I was in charge of
Not
security
you, our
management.
guest.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right. Get right up against that mic when we go here, Adam. His name is Adam Blum. He is an entertainment manager and producer. He's out of Los Angeles, California, Hollywood, one of these types. The kind of people, it's very tough for me to get guys like this in captivity, but I have an in because he's married to my cousin. Yeah. And so I'm able to talk to you because I'm fascinated by your business. I'm fascinated by, and by the way, I don't know if you know this, but right after high school,
tell me,
I went to. I took a day-long class on how to be a super celebrity in Hollywood.
I could tell.
Yeah.
The day.
And it was all about, like, make sure you're very discerning about headshots and then, act like you don't care when you get your first, tryouts, whatever they call them, auditions. And it said, find a good local acting class, one that's kind of small, not the Kmart of acting class. The Kmart was a thing back then, powerhouse. And
wait, so the Kmart of acting classes was saying it was a high level or low level acting class?
That they said stay away from those.
They're saying it's bad. It's
yes.
like cheap. Lame.
Exactly.
Right.
Like glamour shots essentially.
Got it.
But for acting.
Yeah.
So I went out to California. I moved into the Newport Beach, Balboa Peninsula. I worked with a bunch of people who were actors. One kid was getting McDonald's commercials, so he was thrilled. And I got high for 6 months and didn't do anything.
How is the McDonald's friend now? Do you still talk to him?
No. He's in the stratosphere. He's probably, I don't know, maybe he's somebody. But so anyway, I
think commercials are pretty good work for actors.
It's great money.
Oh, crazy.
National commercial, yeah.
So
it's great.
the people who I knew, get really close there, Adam, else it's going to mostly catch the psychotic 4-year-old.
The goal.
Here,
So
we're gonna scoot closer
sorry, is that okay?
Oh yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. But what I've found is when I went over there is that just half the people were half-assing it like me.
Sure.
Who just washed out, fell in love with how beautiful the place was and the party scene.
Yeah, it's really, really pretty.
And then there were some people like the McDonald's guy who was like almost making a living. And to the people I knew, that was the level. That was success.
Totally.
There was no like being a superstar.
Sure.
It was like if you could possibly work in the business as anything.
Yeah, survive first.
Right. And do that.
Yeah.
And so you went to Emerson.
Yep.
Which is where you go to be in the entertainment industry, broadcast industry as well. They get a big radio program there. One, was that a waste, or is that? It
was really good. I mean, I think one of the best things about going to Emerson is I met my wife, who also went there, your cousin, but also it got me to Los Angeles. I don't think if I went to any other school, I would have ended up in Los Angeles because it was such a scary place. I grew up in Connecticut, so East Coast guy. Right. Was barely ever out west at all. I don't really know if I had been. I mean, Nebraska was the furthest. So
right.
But yeah, so it got me out there, and I fell in love with it, and so I think I do have to owe all that to Emerson because I wouldn't have been there.
So did you get like internships through Emerson?
Yeah.
Well, that's everything then.
Right.
Like getting on set or in the building, in the office.
Yeah.
In the realm is like.
They have an internship program your senior year. Most people do it their second semester so they can like just get a job right away. But that was like too scary for me. So I was like, I'm going to do it first semester. So I knew I had the safety net of coming back. Right. So I went my first semester and then came back, graduated, then moved back in August and there are some jobs out there that the job I wanted, which was like being a development exec and eventually a producer, and now I manage as well. It's like you didn't really know those existed, like from the classes. It was a lot of physical production. It was stuff like that. So they didn't teach me a lot. I remember I went and I learned, like, you're reading scripts, you're doing coverage. My internship was at Silver Pictures, which was like kind of known as like an intern factory. That's like Joel Silver did all these all the action movies, like a lot of the action movies from the 80s and 90s. And I remember I came back to Emerson and you took like an inside Hollywood class, and it was a little silly. Like they would,
but it sounds sexy. Probably if you're a 21-year-old, you're like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah, it just wasn't real. It was like some teacher in Boston tell you like what to wear. Like I remember, at the time it seemed silly, but like it was a book, and it was like if you're a writer, wear this, and if you're a producer, wear black, and it's just like Jesus.
Oh man.
But yeah, some of those books are, I think generally they're healthy, like they're trying to help. There's probably a couple good things in each one of them, but some are better than others for sure.
Yeah, I have the same thing for getting into radio for like people into broadcasting school.
Yeah.
And it's like make sure that your intonation is from the deep part of your chest. Like when you get to a radio station, you are battling to be the mailroom kid.
Totally.
Yeah, there's no voice like that. That's
Yeah.
it. All that's out the window.
Right.
You know, I mean, learning the stuff about cables is probably useful.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's totally out the window.
I still remember in Emerson, like a physical production class, they tried to teach me how to to roll a cable. To this day, like you do it like a snake, like in order and something.
Yeah.
To this day, I can't do it correctly. What is this?
Well, I assume though that when you got your first gigs out there that you were a one-man band. I assume you had to do everything. There was no time you had people, right? You were like when you got your first gig, were you like a scrub? Okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. So my first job ever, I was like a PA for the World Poker Tour. Not my first job ever. My first job out there.
Okay, and that's a personal assistant, right?
Yeah, right. A production assistant.
I'm sorry.
So you're running around.
Assistant.
I mean, it stands for both, but that one was production. So I was running around the set, getting people coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And then my first job, kind of on the path that I wanted to be at, was being an assistant at an agency. It was a smaller agency at a time, big TV packaging agency called. It was BWCS. It stood for like Broder, Webb, Chervin, Silberman.
Yep.
They did like Cheers, and I think they did. I don't know if they did the Cosby Show. They might have done Roseanne. So they had all this like TV money.
Yeah.
And I got a job working for a TV feature executive. So he represented writers and directors as an agent, which is what I do now. But at the time, I'm a manager. He was an agent. So that was my first job. And it was tough.
Before we get to that one, when you talked about the
Tom, let's back up.
That's right. Let's take a 50,000-foot look now.
Let's unpack that a little.
Yeah, let's.
Well, I said the word like a scrub job or whatever, but the PA job, I assume, is hugely valuable.
Yeah.
Because if you don't suck, if you're not a mouth-breathing moron, you might stand out from some of the other kids.
Yep.
And if you have drive, and everybody
The
needs
best
some.
person I ever hired to work under me in e-commerce was a person who did that in Hollywood, like on TV shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And like she was awesome because she would do anything. She would like call the parking company to make sure like we could park our cars at whatever we had to be at to do some project, or she just like would handle things.
No, that's clutch, and everybody needs that. If you can make somebody's life who's important, if you can make their life a little easier, then you stand out. You've got value. It's just like, I guess the challenge would be for you is how much do you want to take it?
I mean, I think, learning to say yes was big. I remember when I was interning at Silver Pictures, I think it was after I had left. I had interned there when I was at Emerson. Somebody else was interning, and I guess Joel Silver, or not Joel, but one of his minions asked this person to sweep the porch or something of his office.
Yes.
And he like reported it to the school, being like, I am not demeaning myself to like sweep this guy's porch. And and I remember at the time, because I was, I was doing anything. Right. So it's like I was kind of, I knew how to say yes. And, I look back at some of the stuff I did and it was ridiculous.
Well, what's the audacity of a young person saying, I'm not demeaning myself? You're in Hollywood, California. You are demeaning yourself to begin with. And then as you get more important and more famous, you're demeaning yourself in a different way. But it never stopped. We're all prostitutes, It never stops. The gigs change and the Johns change and what we call ourselves change. But
but I mean, I've worked in the fashion industry, and it's the same with like the internships where they tell you like, oh, you're going to be learning all kinds of stuff, and it's not just to get coffee and do scrub job, but it's absolutely to get coffee and do scrub jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
And the people who are working for like actual money in the company are also doing a bunch of crummy work too. Like, welcome to life. Nobody's, it's not all glamour all the time in any job.
And it's almost like the more you do that stuff, the more you get the access to learn stuff. Like I didn't notice that for sure when I was interning. Like the more you were, open to doing anything and being helpful, people were like, oh, this person is like doing a lot for us. And, I didn't sweep the guy's porch, but if he had, the person who made him sweep the porch might be like, oh yeah, he swept the porch with a grin. Like let's let him learn this or whatever. I mean,
it's incredible because it's such a positive opportunity.
Yeah.
To go above and beyond for somebody, whether it's demeaning or not. I've also found that, and maybe you found this too, that people, especially if they're in the dog-eat-dog world, like for me, when I was first starting radio, it was the sales guys who were always hustling and always they're alphas and girls too. And they were bringing in revenue, but they would never stopped hustling.
Yeah.
When you were helping them out and doing it with a smile and a force for positivity, it made them feel good.
Yeah.
Even though they were sharks, to help you out, to do you a solid.
It was almost like a reverse manipulation, kind of, right? It's like if I do this for this person and I do it with a grin and I don't like question, I'm gonna do it. Like it's almost like they owe you, right? And it's like, okay, I'm gonna. Oh my God, like he did this, like yes, or it's like yes, it's the job, whether you're getting paid or not, if you're in that role, but it's almost like you're earning a favor back, kind of.
Yes,
it's like when you turn around and you go to them and like, hey, help me find a job. It's like, oh yeah, you were nice, you did all this stuff, like it was clear that you wanted to do it, so.
Right. So, and that's in any occupation. I think
Right.
that's pretty much how it goes. Hey,
Yeah.
can you help your Uncle Jimmy? Can you help your uncle, maybe?
Yeah, go help Uncle Jimmy.
So,
He needs help.
when you were the production assistant,
Yeah.
At first, what was what sucked about it, and what was good about it?
I don't remember anything sucking about it, just because it all kind of sucked. Like you
Yeah.
knew you were low man on the totem pole, and I also, I just remember getting the host coffee.
Yeah.
And I was just so enamored by the whole thing. Like it was just so, I was excited to have a job.
Yes.
I was on a set.
Yeah.
We were at a casino.
I mean, being on a set itself is cool as hell with
Yeah.
the freaking, the food trucks and the sounds of the generators and all that stuff. I mean, I assume does that wear off?
Does that wear off?
Did you,
excitement?
The luster of it all.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I at some point was on set not doing that, right? Being a producer. And
yes.
It's really exciting. Like it's still really exciting, right? It's just kind of different. So no, I don't think it wears off. It's kind of feeling like, oh, I'm part of something special right now. Like something interesting happening. Like all these people are getting together, working together in this kind of unique space that before you're doing it, you're not used to. So it felt cool.
So in radio, a producer really is a guy who gets all the stuff, puts it all together, brings all the guests in, facilitates all the things that need to happen so that the host can take jump shots on the air.
Yeah.
What does a producer do in Hollywood?
I mean, I think it's probably similar to that wherein, it's a little bit of everything and I don't know if it's like this in radio, but depending on what the project is, it's always a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people ask the question. It's kind of the cliche question of like, what does a producer even do? I don't mean your question is cliche. I just mean like it's a go-to thing that everybody always ask. And for me, it was like you do different things at different stages, right? Like you help shepherd it to get sold, right? You find a piece of material. Like for example, you can come up with an idea. You can find a writer to write that idea. You can find a director who wants to direct it. You can kind of put together this package, bring it out to buyers, and try to kind of sell it.
And you're selling at this point the idea, the concept.
Yeah, you could a pitch, or you could have them write a script. So there's a billion different versions of what it could be. So I like to just tell people you're just kind of helping shepherd a project from the very beginning to the very end, right? Through inception, through it being released and in the world. And it's not always that. Sometimes you kind of come in halfway. It's tough.
Most people outside assume we're making a porn, just so you know. So we've got a small crowd.
We're not?
We are. Yeah. That's coming.
Alice, can you excuse us?
This is a new concept. New concept. So, by the way, when you get your pitch together, you've got the screenplay written. You've got a guy in place. You've got I don't know who else you need to get, or you got a wardrobe person, whatever the elements that you need.
Not that far. Okay. Yeah, no. It's at first it's just kind of it's usually just a writer, and sometimes a writer and a director, and sometimes another producer, right? So if I'm just managing something, managing the writer or director, it would go get a bigger producer, someone who is like a known quantity that people know and like adds value to the project. And if I am producing it, sometimes I still try to bring on a bigger producer that has more clout and can get it done.
Gotcha.
Most of the time, they're like, "Who is this guy?"
So, you're doing the pitch to get the money, right? So you can start production.
Start developing it as a script, right?
Okay, so we're not even at production yet.
Correct, right? Yeah. So if Alice had an idea, she was like, "Hey, I want to do this movie about this guy with a dog who like turns into an octopus."
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Cool, let's like figure out what that is, and then let's take that to all the people that would buy that and tell them that idea, and hopefully they get really excited about it."
Okay, and if they really get excited, if one of those people says, "You know what, I like this. This is perfect,"
They'll pay her to write it.
They'll pay her to write it.
Yep.
Okay. Not a treatment, a full script, a screenplay.
Correct. It may start with the treatment. That may be the first step, but usually it's for this treatment would be part of a bigger deal. That would be a treatment and a script.
And when they pay her to write it, is it theirs?
Yep, they own it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so at that point,
but usually probably with some kind of deal that the writers like cut into it in some way.
Yeah, I mean you're the writer, they're paying you, and the goal is to have you be part of the project forever. Right. But sometimes they have to bring in another writer to fix it, and then they might bring you back, right? Like I've seen that happen before too. It's like they'll have Alice do all this work, she'll get it to the 20-yard line. For maybe political reasons or something, they have to bring in a bigger, fancier writer to do another pass to bring it 10 more yards, and then they bring her back, and we're like, okay, cool, now you bring it home.
So it's interesting. Is that all? Do some writers, just screenwriters, just have so much luster that if their handprint is on it, it's considered to have more credence, credibility?
Yeah, sure. I think there are some writers that studios and financiers are so familiar with and feel so comfortable with and have delivered for them so often that if they give it to them, they're going to feel safer. Like, okay, cool. For, Michael Arndt, he's a huge name in screenwriting. And I remember for years, Disney was paying him like $10 million a year just to kind of like work on a handful of their Pixar projects and other projects. And I assume that if they gave it to him, they would feel more comfortable. Like, okay, cool. He did his pass on it. It's going to be better now.
So, that brings up an interesting point because I think a lot of people feel, someone in the chat asked, will Hollywood ever make a good movie again? I thought Top Gun was pretty good, but
Top Gun was great.
But I do think that sometimes Hollywood plays it like super safe, and they only go with projects that are like remakes, sequels, based on really popular books, comic book movies. Like, I mean, and it sometimes seems like there's nothing that's not one of those things out right now. Like, so is that how do things like that get made? Who takes a chance on those?
It's a great question because I think people feel that way a lot. I mean, a lot of times they're business decisions, right? So it's like, of course, making a Harry Potter movie based on the books is a much better business decision than making your movie about the dog who turns into an octopus, right? Even though that idea is more
Even
original.
though, how much money did the Fantastic Beasts movie, the latest one, make?
Yeah, not a ton.
Much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't the definition in Hollywood of a good movie a movie that brings in box office, right? It's a business.
But that movie didn't do that great, and I assume it cost a fortune.
Which
to
one?
make. The most recent Fantastic Beasts?
No, it didn't do that well.
Well, nobody's going to feel good about something if nobody's getting paid. I mean, at the end of the day, if the investor doesn't, so we're asking him to separate the business and the art here. He can't win either way.
No, there's the two things, right? It's like, is a project going to be commercial and make a ton of money, right? That's one metrics to rate something on and measure something on. And then is it a good piece of art, a good story? Do the critics like it? Is it going to win awards? Like, those are two separate things, and very rarely are they the same. Right? And like Top Gun, it was a great example of that this year, right? People are even talking about, like, is it going to get nominated for
Best Picture?
Best Picture, which
it should.
Like probably 5 to 10 years ago, it wouldn't have. No matter what, just because it wasn't like an art house movie. It's kind of this big popcorn movie, but it might. There's 10 slots now. So.
It seems so unlikely. It kind of would be a good. I think it would be a good branding decision for Hollywood to do it. So because it's not a guy falling in love with a jellyfish,
Right.
But I mean, I think isn't Tom Cruise like in some circles there considered somebody people don't. I have no problem with him, but I've heard that people like we don't want anything to do with Tom Cruise.
He's controversial.
He told people not to take antidepressants. So
but why I don't understand why he's controversial. 'Cause there's a bunch of Scientologists in Hollywood, right?
Yeah,
I think it's gone on the decline. I don't know though.
No.
Yeah. I think it was for a while. It was like this kind of like, oh, that's a great way to advance in Hollywood, and I don't know if it is anymore.
Well, let's go after that question in a different way. Will Hollywood ever make a good movie again? Because there's more good content now coming out of LA and other places than ever.
Sure.
It's just on different platforms.
Yeah.
So it might not be at the multiplex, like it used to be. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's never returning to that, right? It's always going to be all this distribution everywhere. Like on this TV in this little house here in South Carolina, where it's got Roku or whatever it is, and Disney Plus and 1,000 other ways to watch some really good stuff.
Right.
So.
But a lot of it was made a long time ago, too. Well, what do we use it to watch? We use it to watch old classic Disney movies. We watch The Sopranos. We watch, like...
Yeah.
I mean, we're not watching, you and I, really,
but The Sopranos
anything that's made
it was a TV show. But
what is that, 20 years old now?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there used to be a huge difference between film and TV. Like, people in film wouldn't ever do TV. It was like this really second-class thing that was kind of garbage, and you were failing if you were in TV, right? And that's much less the case now. That's not really the case. It's almost like reversed, right? Doing prestige TV is the thing everyone's doing. And, it used to just be like shows like The Sopranos or 6 Feet Under and like stuff on HBO was like anything that people would even consider doing. And now, everybody's doing it. And some of the best art and the best storytelling is on TV, right? Is these kind of like either a limited series or just a normal series, and it's on one of these streaming platforms. So,
and people even talk about like there's always I love Harry Potter, so I'm always in those like fan communities, and people are always saying like they want that remade as a TV show now. Like they want one season, they want HBO to do it with one season per year at Hogwarts and do the
That'd be
whole
cool.
thing. Like, but I think people's mindset about TV has changed, and about like I think it used to be really a matter of course that if you adapted a book or something else that so much would just be cut, and now because of in part, I think because of online fandom for various things, and because people are more open to binging 10 hours of something, like that mindset has sort of changed, and they're like, oh yeah, we can adapt this in totally nitty gritty detail and, over a really long period of time, and people will watch this for all these hours. Like it's fine. If you watch like even older like Pride and Prejudices or Jane Eyre's like adaptations of those books back when like Laurence Olivier or Orson Welles were doing movies like that. They're so chopped up and cut. They're missing like huge sections of the plots of the books.
Right.
And now they don't do that so much anymore.
Yeah, because they're on these series where they have all this all this time to play with.
Yeah, and they go on forever. But
the Harry Potter TV show, I'd watch that. That'd be fun.
Has there been a migration of talent and writers, etc., who have just abandoned the studios for? Well, I guess the studios still do the TV, but have moved from feature films.
Yeah, I think everybody. I don't think it's just movie stars who are doing TV now. I think there's a huge community of people who would only do features, 10, 20 years ago, and now are down for TV. I think the TV business has changed a lot. I'm not an expert in it, but I have heard a lot about how the paydays are a lot different in TV. Like some of the kind of runaway hits that were like very lucrative, right? Like the Seinfelds and the Friends, like that doesn't really exist anymore in TV.
Right.
But I think that's a different conversation. Will there ever be a good movie again? Yes, I think there are some now. I think it really depends on like how you define what that is, right? What does that mean to you?
Will it be in theaters?
I mean, Top Gun. We already talked about that. There are.
Would that have been in theaters if there wasn't an international market? Because really, that's where they're making all their money, right?
I think it did really well domestically. I think it did really well internationally too. I think they wanted that to go to streaming, and they fought back, and they said, no, we're going to put this in the theater. And it was everyone loved it in Hollywood because it just showed people the power of like having a movie in the theater first. Yeah. And the power of the movie star, right? Like for so long, people are like, do people even care anymore? Like, are people even going to see a George Clooney movie or a Matt Damon movie? Is that getting butts in the theater? Yeah. And it was like unclear. And then Tom Cruise movie comes out and it's huge. And
I don't know if you saw it in the theater, but he did that pre-roll where he like thanked people to come.
Yeah, I think I did see that.
Coming into the theater to see him. Cool. It was an interesting appeal for them to work with people. So when you're managing. So you manage, let's say, the producer in this case.
I manage writers and directors.
Writers and directors, okay.
So not producers.
So what stage in the process? We've got the screenwriter in. Yeah. We've got a good screenplay. We're pitching somebody. They like the idea. Then they say, okay, we want you to write the whole thing and make it pretty, whatever. Yeah. At what point? What's the next point in the process?
There's a bunch of different answers to that. In the perfect process, they would say, great, we like it. Alice did a great job writing this movie. Let's go make it. Right? Let's get a budget. Let's put it into production.
Who's they at this point?
The financier.
Okay.
Who, if we're talking about a studio movie, would be the studio. So it would be Sony, Disney, Universal.
And then at this point, do they say, so long, Adam, it's been fun. We'll take it from here?
Well, so if I'm producing it, then I'm attached to it the whole way. Okay. Right? If I'm managing Alice, they're kind of two different roles, and it can get a little bit confusing, right? Yep. So if I'm Alice's manager and I'm not attached to produce, then I'm just overseeing Alice and helping her get the job and maybe reading her drafts sometimes not.
And advocating on her behalf, I assume, in case she's getting pushed around or whatever.
For sure. Yeah, making sure it's going well, helping wherever I can, playing, doing the politics, trying to help with all that stuff.
Is there a hand-holding aspect to that? Like
with the client?
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yes, no, yeah. I mean, like, being a friend, someone to talk to, someone to bounce stuff
there's
off.
like a fun therapeutic element to it, like giving advice, talking about the politics of it. I mean, before I was managing, that was one of my favorite things to do, right? When a friend would call me, who would ask me in the business, would call me and ask me a question about something that I was not connected to at all. Like it wasn't part of my job. I wasn't producing it or anything.
Right.
I would love giving them advice. I'd be like, cool, this is what I would do. Here are the angles you're not looking at. You're a director, you're a writer, you're not looking at it from this kind of political side or this backside. And then I realized before I became a manager, that's one aspect of being a manager.
Right.
I love that. Let's do it.
Right. Because I assume that if you're dealing with a writer, then everybody's neurotic. But I mean, this is their art. They've now bared their soul to somebody, to a bunch of people who are prodding through it.
Yeah.
And I assume you're just very open to
very exposed
yes,
to criticism,
to being hurt.
Yeah. And everything's so heartbreaking, and the odds are always the odds are against everybody, right? The odds of stuff that gets made, just from a numbers point of view, they're just low. Like I don't know what exactly the odds are of numbers of things that are written, or I mean, not even the things that are written, but the things that are sold versus what get made.
Yeah.
It's a very
so I'm going to ask about that in a second. How does that pitch go? Is that always over a lunch, or could it be over?
No, it's a meeting.
It's a meeting in the studio.
It could be it literally could be in an elevator. It could be over lunch. It could be anywhere if somebody gets excited about it. But 99% of the time, it's in an office, at a meeting, at a producer or an executive's office.
Okay, and this is when the pitch is crucial.
Yeah. So basically, if Al's had a pitch, if I was just her manager, I would call up every producer I know and be like, hey, there's this pitch. It's super excited. Alice wrote it. It's fantastic. It's a great idea. She's a fantastic writer. You've read her. If you haven't read her, you need to read her. She's very talented. You have to meet this person. She would go in there. And she would pitch them for 20, 25 minutes, tell them the story.
Right.
There'd be some just get you to know you conversation first to start things off. And then she would pitch them, and then they would talk about it a little bit afterwards, and then she would leave. And then I would follow up with that executive. Very rarely they'll say, I love this, I want to do it in the room. Sometimes that happens.
Okay.
But then the producer would call me and say, hey, I want to do this.
Interesting. So they'll hide their cards right there. They won't emote in front of everyone.
Sometimes they have to talk to their boss. Sometimes they need to think about it. Sometimes they have some follow-up questions, or they need to read something. Yeah.
So when, and I used to write columns, the lead was all important. I wrote for a tabloid. So it would be like the lead in the column would be, it was a press conference for the ages, something to get people in, or, this politician spit fire last night, something like that.
Yeah.
Whack them. Do you tell clients to have a lead, to have a pitch that's captivating? It's Die Hard in the Bus, like that
totally.
kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do send that over the phone when I call them.
Yeah.
But the pitch, the performance is huge. I mean, sometimes preparing for a pitch can almost take as long as writing a whole script, right? Like,
oh my goodness.
Sometimes it can, depending on how much effort you want to put in. I've seen people videotape themselves performing, and it's an art, and it's very lucrative. And it used to be much more lucrative. It's gotten more rare now, selling something on a pitch. But yeah, it's definitely its own kind of art form. It's funny. There's all these different, because a lot of writers, you sit in a room and you write all day. It's kind of this solitary thing, and then all of a sudden you have to get out there and be like, performing it. I've seen a lot of writing partnerships where, one person is the better presenter and the other person maybe is the better writer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So well, because I guess it's literally a job interview.
Yeah.
So.
They hear them all day. And most of them are horrible.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I would assume that if you're
and they're a super huge investment, so it's
you
totally.
don't want. It's a high risk, a high reward.
And there's so much work. Yeah. Like it takes years to do.
Who was the actor who was saying? I forgot what it was, but an actor who's made it big now was saying his job in Hollywood was to go to auditions, and that's it. And he, as soon as he took his expectations down from getting gigs, to my job just to go out there and do auditions. Yeah. That's it. That it calmed his heart rate down.
Totally.
Is there a way for people to, other than reps, is there any way for people to work the nervousness out of their systems?
I mean, I think kind of changing I think an exercise like that's really smart, right? Like make it really about the numbers. It's like if you just put your head down and just kind of keep going forever, like that's a really good mentality to have, right? The worst is like when you set because I know a lot of young writers who would come out to Los Angeles or would enter the business and they're like, I'm not going to be happy till I get an agent, or I'm not going to be happy till I get a manager. I'm not going to be happy till I sell this script or whatever. And it's like, that's risky. Like you should just be like, I'm going to do this forever. Like the first thing I would used to tell people is like, get a job so you can pay your bills. Like don't say, hey, I can only pay my bills if I like sell something. It's like, that's a lot of pressure, man. Like, figure out how you can like live your life and then just commit to writing forever. And then if you do that and you write a little bit every day, like you'll get really good at it.
It's interesting. It does play against the the romantic notion that gets a lot of people over there.
Oh, totally. That I'm going to write a script in my
Yeah,
shed.
it reminds me of. Do you remember that thread that went viral a while back with the writer from The Usual Suspects who basically said like, I've had stuff not sell. I've had like people, even though I've had this huge movie, people still won't take any risks on my work. Like they won't like, and the best way to do it is just to do it. Just write stuff. Just make movie. Like you can make a movie on an iPhone if you want to. Like you could. The best way to make movies is make movies.
I heard Dan Harmon. I saw Dan Harmon. I think on TikTok say something the other day that kind of inspired me. I don't write, but I thought it was just a really good way to look at life. He was like, when you go to write, your goal should be to prove to people that you can't write. Like, just get there and just start proving to people you can't write. And what he means by that is just if you need to prove to people that you can write, that's so much fucking pressure.
Yeah.
Like, you'll just maybe never do it. So if you just prove to people, like, if your mentality is I'm just going to start writing, it's just a way to let the steam out and be like, just relax and just write and just try to write horribly. And it's almost like a mind trick to get you to just keep writing.
Well, it's interesting too, but I would also think that people, prospective employers or people who are going to green light stuff, want to see that somebody's hustling. They want to see that they're doing something. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because people ask me, because I've done radio stuff and podcasting stuff. Sure. Like, how do I do podcasts, or how do I get into radio? Well, the answer is the way you start to do a podcast is to do a podcast. Sure. And the way to get into radio is get into radio. Yeah. And then once you've done that, then come back and we can talk about other stuff. Sure. But you need to get in there, convince somebody that you're the best person to mow the lawn for the studio, and then, get a weekend gig, and then get an overnight gig, and get called in when somebody called. I mean, you have to show some initiative that you're willing to like get out there and at least get dirty to get in the game. Sure. Rather than this is like, where's the secret expressway? Yeah. Okay, so the studio says yes. Yep. They've hired your client. Yep. And to write. Yep. And it looks like they're going to put money behind it. At this point, are you still telling your client, don't get ahead of yourself, don't buy a BMW?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
There's still a chance this can die. And is it at this point, is it probably still going to die or sit in purgatory?
You said, are they?
The executive loved it.
Yeah. Are they putting money into it, other than just for the script?
Well, they're excited about the script, and so it gets that far anyway. And the executive seems to be excited. They call you afterwards, and they said they talked to the brass, and they're looking. Where did most of them go to die?
Sure, most of them get stuck at that level, right? They stop, and then they're done, and then the studio doesn't want to spend the millions of dollars to make it, because from that step is when you jump in. So to pay Alice to write it costs anywhere from $75,000 to $3 million, depending on where Alice is in her career.
Relatively small money.
Correct.
Yeah, big money for me. Relatively small.
Huge money for everyone.
Right.
Yeah, but compared to the money they have to put into making it and then eventually marketing it, it's still, most of the time they'll say, you know what, like, we'll just chalk that up to a loss, because we do it every year, right? They make a ton of scripts, and then they decide, which ones to make, and it's always, a much smaller number. So they're used to kind of writing off development spending. So they decide, usually there's like a green light committee at some of these studios. I mean, back in the day, way before our time, there were, single guys. There were these legendary heads of studios who would like decide what to do or what not to do, whether to make a movie or not. Now there's a much more kind of bureaucratic system. Shareholders, all that stuff.
Oh, I assume shareholders. I assume the chief financial officer is involved at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
So are there not people like that anymore? Is that, and that brings up, because like to me the most interesting entertainment news this week was Bob Iger coming back to Disney.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I mean, like, is he somebody like that who's like? I mean, I know that's not exactly his gig, but
I think
it's
some
like,
of the bigger. Sorry, go ahead.
well, just like I think, do companies like still need somebody like that, like a Bob Iger, somebody who's in a leadership role and is making decisions about the direction of like where this company is going, what we're doing, and like, do they get lost without that a little?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I'm very under-equipped to answer that with any authority. But yeah, I mean, I think Bob Iger, I assume, has some, input, or they run by him the really big movies, right? To talk about the brand and the direction of the company. Obviously, he's not doing the day-to-day script reading.
Right.
That's kind of the head of production and the chairman above him. But yeah, I think, obviously I assume companies need that. And yeah, it used to be kind of the bombastic heads of the studios, and all the studios are named after them, right? Like the Warner Brothers, like those were actual guys who I think would decide what movies they wanted to make and stuff like that. And that's kind of gone away. So now, yeah, they get the head of marketing to come in. They get the financial guys to kind of run the numbers and project what it's going to do. I mean, you saw, especially with the streaming question now, right? That's a big thing. Like, is it going to go to streaming or not?
So in that room, who's the chief advocate for the movie? The original executive who signed off on it? Because it's his ass on the line, right?
Well, it's probably the executive who isn't the president, right? It's probably, the creative executive or the vice president or whoever was working with the writer hands-on. They want it to go because it's their project, right?
Yes.
And then the president will probably say, yes, I like this. Let's kind of present it. And every studio is a little bit different. But then, yeah, the green light committee would kind of decide whether or not they're going to make it.
And does he have somebody who's working with him who's going to do a PowerPoint on the ROI that's guaranteed with his next hit?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, they kind of present the comps, right? They're always comparing it to other movies that are similar or might be in the same genre and stuff like that. Yeah.
Is this process for you thrilling? Because it seems to me a lot of ups and downs, a lot of exhilaration and heartache.
Yeah.
A lot of what seems like a celebration turns to permanently on hold.
Yeah.
You could just be an accountant and work 9 to 5 and get paid fine every week. You know, is the process the fun of this?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, it's definitely exciting, right? They're definitely kind of the ups and downs are definitely thrilling. They're also like heartbreaking. So, I tell my clients a lot of the time, like, we'll have a good week, right? Something good will happen. And I'll kind of remind them to like cherish this and celebrate this and like have a great weekend because this was really good. And next week, we don't know. Like anything can happen. Even when a project goes, super well, I think, bringing it back to Top Gun, which we've talked about, like everyone who's made Top Gun, they had a really good year, right? Because it was, the director, the writer, the producers, the studios. But when your movie comes out, it's always like, what's next, right? As soon as a movie comes out, even if it's a huge hit, you have to figure out what you're going to do next, right? So the glory only lasts for so long. So you really need to kind of like make sure you celebrate the small victories too. Because if you're just waiting for that big victory, you could be bummed that you waited.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you've got your own shop, kind of, right? So it's not. I mean,
on my own.
You're not. You've got to earn as you go.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
the expense account situation is very different.
Yeah.
As I went on my own. Yeah. I used to work for companies. You would kind of have that infrastructure. You would have that support. But ever since I kind of went on my own, it's different. It's definitely like a little bit.
Is the autonomy worth it?
I think so. Yeah. It would be hard to go back.
Yeah.
Just because you're kind of your own boss and you make your own decisions. And I realized that back when I was working for somebody else, I cared more about what they thought or like how I was looking in the company. And now it's like all I really care about is like the work, right? Like, are the clients happy? Are the projects good? Are we doing that? And it feels different. It feels better.
I hate to say the word. What's the word? It's almost. I mean, God forgive me for saying this. I apologize.
Sure.
But it seems like almost like a Zen thing where you've found a peace of mind and comfort.
Yeah.
Which isn't like the Ari Gold, kick ass, flip the table over kind of thing. But it's a good way to be able to breathe in a pressure cooker, like LA is, which is survival, I think, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's, for me it works, and it's definitely worth it.
Have you had clients or known people who you could tell that they don't have the mindset, the temper to handle what the ride
Did
they're
you meet
about to go
any
on.
young Tom Shaddocks?
Did you?
In other words, people who couldn't hack
have
it.
you met?
Why did you move to Newport Beach? How did that happen? That's a question I had from the beginning. You moved to Newport Beach.
Yeah.
How did the Newport Beach decide? Because that's kind of off. That's not
Yeah.
kind of far from Los Angeles.
There were some strategic misfires from the beginning. Exactly.
It's a beautiful place.
I kept looking for the Hollywood sign up near Fashion Island. I think it's somewhere here, around here somewhere.
Yeah.
No, I got an apartment and it looked cool, and I got a job at a grocery store. So that was
nice.
So I was like, okay,
Ralph's? Vaughn's?
No, it was not a chain. It was called the Hershey Market on Balboa Island, where John Wayne used to live. as a
Oh,
matter of
cool.
fact. Where they on the island, as a matter of fact, they shot the beach scenes in the sands of Iwo Jima.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. So what I mean is, did you know people who were too fragile, who just broke, and they're now like working at a Denny's in Nebraska?
Not really, but I'm sure it definitely happens. There's definitely, when it comes to clients, writers, and directors, or people I'm working with, it's always just about kind of like their work, right? Like basically my job is find a piece of material that I'm really excited about and then get everybody else excited about it, right?
Right.
Like that's the beginning of the job. After that, there's a lot of kind of like analyzing, consulting, strategizing, like for their career. What do we do next? What do we do next year? What do we do tomorrow? What do we do in 5 years from now? But at first, it's very basic. It's like, am I excited about this? Cool. Now I'm going to call 150 people that I know and try to get them excited, right? And that's the job. So there's like that salesman aspect.
That really is sales stuff.
Yeah.
So do you not really have a hand in well, I guess your creativity is used to
It varies.
craft the sales.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll have an idea.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, hey, try to find a writer to do that. And, sometimes it's a client, sometimes it's not. Sometimes a writer will come and pitch me their ideas, and we'll work on those. Sometimes it is very hands-off, and someone like has given me a script, and it's done, and now I just love it. Now I need to try to get somebody to buy it. So there's like different levels of my involvement on the creative side. So it kind of really does vary on a situation-to-situation basis.
We are talking to Adam Blum. He's an entertainment manager and producer in Hollywood, California. Did you find that there were an inordinate amount of weasels in L.A. when you first moved there from New England?
I don't know if I'd call them weasels. There's definitely a Los Angeles, persona of, a lot of it can be very ego-driven, especially if you're hanging out in the wrong places, right? If you're going to the places where everyone's just trying to look beautiful and be noticed, it's
right.
like, So you learn where those places are, and then you avoid them as much as you can.
When I got over there, I worked at a telemarketing place which got raided by the FBI after I left, which was
Boiler room.
Essentially, and everybody in there was Elias from Die Hard, or Ellis from Die Hard.
Yeah.
It was all the same guy, all
That's
gleaming
funny.
teeth, all doing cocaine in the bathroom.
Sure,
It was like, man, this place is full of weasels.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a bit of a turnoff, and it's funny because they could tell that I wasn't from there.
Yeah.
I remember one kid saying, "You're from New England, probably Connecticut or something." Close. It's weird, but
yeah, there's a lot of transplants, and there is it's funny. I recently had a kid like 11 months ago, and it's very strange thinking that I'm gonna raise someone who's from Los Angeles. Like that's very weird because I mean, when
he's got a great. It's Oliver Bloom. I mean, that kid's going places.
Yeah, it's got a ring to it.
Oliver Bloom.
Yeah.
Why didn't we do Oliver Bloom, Alice?
I don't know.
Are you guys gonna have more kids?
No.
What, you guys
Are you
going to stop at 14?
You need to have more kids. Let's roll.
How many kids you guys have?
We have 4.
4.
4. I've seen 4. I'm sure you have some others around here somewhere.
Very possible.
Yeah,
I don't know. We haven't done.
Tom wouldn't really know.
Yeah,
whether
we haven't
or
done
not
a
we
head
have more
count. So we
kids.
had 4 at one point. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
At least 4.
What are your reservations about raising your son in LA?
Oh, it's a great question. I just always, it was, tons of transplants in Los Angeles. I would say most of the people I was friends with, I only have a few friends who were born and raised in Los Angeles. I don't know, something different about being grown up in Los Angeles. I don't know what it is.
It is.
I can't put my finger on it.
Shockingly beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
it is absolutely. We were just there a few months ago, and it was I just how
Thanks for the call, by the way.
It's
good
no.
to see you.
Yeah, we just wanted to avoid you, so
Yeah.
we were just no. We had a tentative date, and somebody got sick, Somebody,
Oh, I do remember that.
That's right.
Yes. It was Lily.
But we were just blown away at how like brutally pretty the Hollywood Hills were, and those roads, those death-defying roads and things.
Yeah.
It's like no wonder why people fall in love with that place.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff trying to kill you in California, but it's somehow still really good.
I remember when I moved out there, I felt that way. I was like, in New England, if you fall and trip on a hill, you just roll down the hill. In Los Angeles, if you fall and trip on a hill, you'd probably die. Like there's a cliff.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. How many cadavers are down there now?
Yeah.
So we were talking
and then
yesterday.
like the earthquakes and the heat waves and just everything.
You pay the price.
It's inhospitable in California, but the ingenuity of man has somehow made it livable for human
I feel
beings.
bad about the people who like move into the fire country, right? They're just like,
oh man,
they know, they're kind of warned. They're like, hey guys, there's a good chance, and then but it's so beautiful, or that they need to do it, or they have to live somewhere, or it's I don't know what it is, but and the fire comes and it's like
that's what happens.
it sucks.
Just a couple more things. We were talking yesterday about kind of some of the scams that are around filmmaking historically in Hollywood, et cetera. And one of the things you said was that people will disrupt scenes in order to shake the production down.
Sure.
Give us an example of how that works.
It's happened a couple times.
So I know, so I can do it.
It's happened a couple times that I've been part of it. I think once we were shooting a movie in the valley somewhere, and some guy was just mowing his lawn, and he wouldn't stop, and we had to. Somebody went over there and paid him. One time, I was like doing some sort of promo thing at the Santa Monica.
Who's the guy who would pay him? What's his job? Is he a PA?
I'm trying to think who that was. Probably the locations guy.
Locations guy. Okay, so he's got a petty cash.
Totally.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It'd be like, hey, go get this guy.
Your job is to grease people. That's
right. And then I did it personally one time. We were doing some weird promo thing on the 3rd Street Promenade, and there was a busker playing guitar, and we asked her if she would like shuffle away a little bit, and she wouldn't. I mean, I think they like reserve those spots. I think like the busking is very organized there. Like you have to get a spot.
Yeah.
So
she wasn't shuffling away.
She was not shuffling away. So we gave her $100 and she went away.
This is the truth about that story, Alice? He strangled her to death.
Yeah.
That's always
by $100. I mean strangulation.
That was the cost of lime in a Glad trash bag.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing.
Sure.
Today's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And we're about to go feast.
Yep.
At a number of swanky houses here in South Carolina. Do you enjoy turkey?
Yeah, I do. Dark meat. I like a dark meat guy.
Are you sure you're not just being diplomatic because the people will listen to this who we're about to see?
Dark meat's great.
Dark meat's great. So if you could have any food in Thanksgiving, it would be dark meat turkey.
I would probably ask for a bowl of mashed potatoes and gravy, but I do like dark meat. Okay. I'm a mashed potato guy. The wife's stuffing, I'm mashed potatoes.
Oh, stuffing is a winner.
You like the stuffing?
Oh my God! I would if I wasn't on my new lifestyle program. I don't know if
you look great, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You look great. Even since I've gotten here, I feel like your cheekbones are more protruding. You do.
People can't see Tom on camera because one of our cameras is broken, but he has on a third skinny shirt in a row that
is that a new shirt?
That newly fits him. It's an old shirt.
It's one of the old shirts that I bought that was a 2XL. But it was stretchy, so it just hugged my fat, so I could never wear it.
Right.
So now it hugs my fat less.
Yeah.
So now I'm wearing it.
You look great.
Thank you. I'm going to try to move to an all pink flamingo theme on my clothes.
I like it. I've got some pink stuff.
Yeah, if you can. Well, I mean, you live in Hollywood. It's different.
Yes.
You get different rules there. You don't have to be street survivalist like I do and macho. All right. So, hey, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you're up to? Any company people should look into? Any websites? Your OnlyFans?
No, I don't really do that. So I got nothing.
None of your pornography from the past that you want to try from the 80s?
No, just leave me alone.
That's probably wise. All right. Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate this. We're going to set you free soon. You're going to hear Alice eloquently take us out.
Thank you so much, everyone. Morgan in the chat said that people saying they don't like turkey sound like children.
Please. God, what a fifth-rate animal.
You can always join our live streams if you want to join our Patreon at patreon.com/burnbarrel. You can also always listen for free. Burnbarrelpodcast.com has all the places you can listen. You can watch on YouTube, on Rumble, if you like those things. But in general, have a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you Sunday.
C'est la vie.